So now, the last part of this is to make these objects move around. As you can see, the pivot points for these are in themselves. You can adjust those. I have a custom bar set up where I have basically a center pivot and freeze transformation and all that. Make sure that they're frozen, you can check. See, they got all these numbers on them. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze transformation, which by the way is under edit. Oh, I'm sorry, it's under modify and freeze transformation right here. And by shift control, I managed to place it in my bar here. So that's how I do that. This one also has a bunch of pieces on it, basically location information. So if I want to zero these out, and the scale's 1, so everything's 0, scales are all 1, and they'll stay in this position, which is where we want them to sort of start if we're going to do a little animation. This animation is going to be 144 frames because we are doing this at 24 frames a second. So that gives us, I believe I said it was like 6 seconds worth of time. 144 divided by 24, 6 seconds, yeah. So it's a 6-second round time that I'm going to look for here. And it's pretty easy. What you do is, the process goes like this for animation in general. You've got your time bar down here at the bottom, and you want to move the position of the time bar to 1, yeah, to start with, right? Or wherever it is needed to be. Move object, keyframe object, move time bar, move object, keyframe object. Okay, so if we leave it here, I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, and I'll right click and hit key selected, and then it should slow. So now if I move it around, wherever I move it to, when I hit go back, it's going to go back to this position. So let's see, 144 divided by 272. So I'm going to drag to frame 72 right here. I did forget one important thing real quick. In order to get these to rotate around the portal, I'm going to have to move the pivot points. So we might as well go to our front view real quick. And if I hit insert, I can move this pivot point. So I'm going to go ahead and select the snap to grid, which is right here. I'm just going to drag this down and over and put it kind of right in the middle of the portal here. This should be fine enough. I don't have an exact point right in the middle, so you could unsnap and just sort of float it right to the middle where you think it fits. Or I could set up my grid to have more points. But once you're done, hit insert. I'm going to hit this one, and I'm going to put that point in the middle as well. So insert. I'll do that snap to grid just because it makes it a little easier to center it. And then let's go ahead and move it a little bit down to the middle here, middle of this little grid piece. So now we can continue. So now if we rotate them, see, they rotate around that point. So this one, I will rotate it all the way around to this side. You'll notice that it's like 100, we want it to be basically like a negative 180 over here in the rotate Y. That's what's moving. That's how I just look at it and go, oh, that one's moving. So we'll key that, but we also want it to float down here. So I'm going to move it down here, and we could probably just put that at 60. Something like that. And we'll right click key that. So now, I forgot to move it to 72, and this is a pretty common mistake. So let's go ahead and undo real quick. Okay, let's move that up. Remember, move and then key. So I already know my values, negative 180, and a 60 right here. So now we'll grab both of these and key them, and when you move it, see how it rotates and now floats between the two positions. So then I'll go all the way up to 144, and I will put it at a negative 360 because that puts it back in a position at the beginning, and 0 here. So now key that, and we should get, it should rotate all the way around, see? There you go. So let's take a look at that. If we hit play, now there's a slight pause when it gets to the 1 point, but we can fix that by going to the animation editor, opening up a graph editor, which is basically how we see the animations. It's kind of funky. It's this little curve chart. And what we want to adjust is we want to adjust that that rotation. So what do we got here? I believe this is what we want to mess with, is this one right here. And you've got all these little options up here. They're called tangents. You can take these tangents and select, and then in this case I played with them a little bit, and I think spline gave me basically what I was looking for. So now if we hit play, it still bounces a little bit. So let's mess with that a little bit more. And that might have been the wrong one anyway. You can double check by grabbing this, and if you hold down shift and middle mouse click, you can move the bits. So that is the one we want to mess with. Let's try that one more time and see what we get. Alright. Let's try the clamped one. Oh, it still gives a bounce. I also kick it back by 1 frame so we don't have a repeat. Let's go to 143. Let's get these both. Well, there's no pause anymore, but it is bouncing, and I guess that's fine. It's just gonna move through, and it's not gonna stop, but it does do a little boink. That requires a little more finessing of the curves, but I'm pretty okay with that. As long as it's not doing it's like stop and then continue moving. I want it to keep moving continuously. So those clamps will work for that. It's a whole other matter to get it to not do a little bouncy bit in there. Let's see, and actually, I wonder. Yeah. No, just work it like that. We cut out the frame. The extra frame repeats, and it would cause a pause, and then the tangent's smoothed out. So it's just going to keep moving around like this. Let's go ahead and set the other one up. Same thing, but we want it to go in the reverse. So we'll key everything, and then we'll move to 72, and we will shift this, positive 180, and 60. Oh, no, 60 is not going to work for this one. Let's go ahead and double check that and see. Alright, well, let's go with a negative 1680. I don't know if that's... okay, it doesn't go through the floor, so that's good. We'll take these. Reset those up. Key selected. Move it on back. 360 here. And set this back. Set this back to 0. Keep in mind that I did have to push this back out to 144, but to get rid of the extra keyframe, I'm going to have to go back to 143. Let's avoid that slow in and slow out here. Go ahead and spline tangent it. They are going through one another, so if I wanted to avoid that, I'd have to set them up to go opposite directions of one another. So let's see what happens if we set that. There we go. And that's just a simple correct of adding a negative to that 360. So it's very easy to kind of correct this stuff sometimes, as long as there's not too much going on. And there you go. And that's the animation aspect.